Pennsylvania in the 1800s. Long before the modern-day state park system was established, back in the early 1800s, Pennsylvania was a barren wasteland, void of trees and wildlife. Furnaces and ironworks popped up all over the Commonwealth, and if you look closely, you can still find some of these remnants in the present day. In this video, we will be searching for various ruins throughout what is now known as Greenwood Furnace State Park, which was originally known as the town of Greenwood. So, come along with me as we try to discover some of the long-forgotten history of Pennsylvania's iron industry. This is Maksim Outdoors, and I hope you all enjoy my exploration of State Park number 28 for my channel, Greenwood Furnace State Park. So, let's fast forward to 2023. Alrighty folks, well, welcome to campsite number 23 here, and welcome to an all-new episode of Maksim Outdoors. And as you probably already seen or guessed, we're here at Greenwood Furnace State Park. So I woke up about an hour ago here at my campsite, had a wonderful night of sleep, got a dreary, rainy, cold June morning here, but slept like a baby. So anyway, we're going to be taking you all around the park today. Greenwood Furnace, we're here in Huntingdon County, pretty much smack dab in the middle of Pennsylvania. If you weren't too sure where we were, put a little map up there for you. So Greenwood Furnace is obviously named after the furnace itself, but there's a lot more history here. This is one of the most history-rich parks that I've explored yet. So this was a booming industrial town back in the 1800s all the way up to 1904, and there was up to 130 buildings here all around this property, all around the state park. So today I'm going to be taking an old map from this town. A lot of the buildings are destroyed, but there are quite a few remaining structures that we're going to be checking out, including a cemetery, a church, the furnace itself, a mansion, and more. So stay tuned. It's probably going to be a little bit of a longer episode, but we're going to try and find every little ruin on this map today. So come along with me. We're going to be leaving the campsite here in a couple minutes, and I'll be telling you a little bit more about the history here at Greenwood Furnace on this dreary June day. All right, let's go. Alrighty guys, well, we're all packed up and ready to go, but before we hit the trail, I just wanted to bring up a little point here. If you come to Greenwood Furnace, make sure you grab this pamphlet. This is everything you need to know about the history of the area. It will show you all the old structures, the structures still standing, and I just wanted to give you a quick overview of what we're going to be doing today. So if you open up the pamphlet, you'll see this little map here, and you might think this is from current day, but this is actually from 1885. This shows basically the entire village of Greenwood and what it used to look like before most of the buildings were torn down. So if you see down here, orange means that they are surviving structures, which means they're still here to this day. Gray means that there are visible remains that you can still see. Yellow means that they're hidden, and white means that they're documented, which means that they're not there anymore. So we're currently staying here. The campground's right in this area. We're going to be walking down this road. The first thing we're going to run into is probably this Monsell House, which means that there are visible remains, as you can see. And then we'll meander our way down to the church. We'll try to find the Gristmill, see if there's any remains of that, and just kind of make a big loop out of this. So this is where I'm going to be getting most of the history for this video from. And yeah, I just wanted to show you that. So hopefully we find some cool ruins today. Just wanted to give you a little gist of what we're going to be doing. So yeah, let's go hit the trail. What do you say? Alrighty folks, well, we are batting 100 so far for the day. Currently on the Monsell Trail, and as we pan to the right here, you'll be able to make out stone foundation just in front of me here. This is our first stop of the day. This is the Monsell House. And like I said, you can kind of make out some of the stone foundation that wraps around. It looks like it was a fairly large building or a house back in the day. Also some other stonework that you can see. There's a board here, I'm not sure why, but yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about the history of this Monsell House here in just a second. All right, well, I'm currently standing on the old foundation here as we're taking a glance here at the old Monsell House. As you can see, a little bit different of a perspective, but I did want to read this little paragraph in this pamphlet here. So it says, standing on the site was the last remaining tenant house at Greenwood Furnace. It was home to John Henry Monsell and his family, and it was known as house number 70 in the company books. Workers paid only $3 a month rent on their houses, believe it or not. In 1905, Monsell purchased this property for $26.60. The family lived here up until 1960, believe it or not, and then it was eventually deemed in poor condition and torn down. So yeah, this is the Monsell House. Pretty cool. And I believe the next stop, we're going to be heading down to the old cemetery, where there are a few Civil War veterans, Revolutionary War veterans, as well as folks that worked here at Greenwood Furnace. So I believe that will be our next stop. Alrighty folks, before we mosey on down to the next location, I didn't want to get too ahead of myself and confuse you folks out there. So we're going to talk a little bit about the history here at Greenwood Furnace State Park. So I'm sure some of you have some questions like, you know, why is this a ghost town now? Why was it abandoned? Why did they choose this specific area to make, you know, a town and a furnace? Well, there are plenty of good reasons. So let's go back in time, back to the 1800s. In order to open up one of these iron furnaces, you needed 4 main ingredients. You needed charcoal. You needed like a source of fuel, basically. You needed iron, obviously. You needed limestone, and you needed water. So this area had all 4 of them, as you probably guessed. This area would have been an untouched, virgin, old-growth forest. What we're looking at now is the second-growth forest that grew after they would have came out here and cut down that original old-growth forest. So that satisfied the need for charcoal. Second, they needed water. There's plenty of streams and waterways, as you could probably hear behind me. So that satisfied that need. They found limestone in the hills here, plenty of it. So that's check mark number 3. And of course, as you guessed, the most important part of an iron furnace is, well, iron. And believe it or not, Huntingdon County was supposedly holding the some of the best iron in the entire state, and some folks said even in the entire country. So that iron ore would have been harvested from the hills here. Hundreds of miles of mines would have been underneath of us still to this day, and they would have sent it on down to the furnace. There have been various crews out here all working in harmony. Everything from the loggers that would have came out here making like 20 cents a day, I think, cutting down 1 acre of trees a day. Imagine that. This was in operation for years and years and years, and they cut down 1 acre of tree a day over 365 days a year, making 20 cents a day. So the loggers would have came out here, cut down the original virgin forest, and basically turned those logs over to the colliers. And if you're not familiar with the colliers, those are the guys that make charcoal, and they would make 20 cents a bundle for this charcoal if it was good quality. So they would hand the logs to the colliers, and the colliers would hand the charcoal to the people working the furnace, which would eventually make pig iron. So that is pretty much the gist of this area. It would have been a thriving little industrial spot here, probably hosting up to, you know, 500, 600 folks back in the day. There would have been stables, taverns, mansions, houses, you name it. It was a bustling town. So yeah, before we go to the cemetery, I figured I would, you know, enlighten you and try to paint a different picture. But yeah, I mean, right where we're looking right now, this would have been probably a 2 or 3 story building, and you can just see how nature has reclaimed everything here. So all right, we're gonna head on down to the cemetery next. Hopefully this makes a little bit more sense to you folks out there. All right, folks, well, we have made it to our second location for the day. I don't really think the cemetery has a name, so just go and call it Greenwood Cemetery. And as you can see, they have this monument out front showcasing some of the veterans here that are buried from the Revolutionary War as well as the Civil War. So we're gonna take a peek for a couple minutes in this old cemetery here. Nobody's been buried here for years, as you can probably imagine. So a little bit of information about the veterans that are buried here. I didn't know this until a couple years ago, but some of you folks might not know this either. You can look at the, I guess we'll call them pennants, on the veteran flags here. As you can see, there's a star version and a circle version. Well, each war has their own unique pennant. And if we look closer here, you can see 1861 to 1865. That's going to symbolize, of course, the Civil War. So this is where a Civil War veteran is buried. So let's go over and check out the Revolutionary War version here and show you a little bit of that as well. And here's a quick glimpse of the Revolutionary War version. You can see the Minuteman logo there, I guess you could call it, and some of the weathered gravestones here at Greenwood Cemetery. So I'm going to spend a couple more minutes here. I'll read you a little bit of what the pamphlet says, and then we're going to move on and try to find the gristmill, which should be right over the hill here. All right, well, we're going to take one last look at the cemetery here before moving on to the next bit of ruins. I do want to read you what this pamphlet says, though, about this area. So it says, the cemetery, this plot of ground, is the final resting place for many of the residents and workers of Greenwood Furnace. There are 27 marked graves and over 60 unmarked graves, which is pretty remarkable. 2 Revolutionary and 6 Civil War veterans are buried here, which I showed you. The earliest known burial was in 1850, and the latest was in 1926. So definitely an older cemetery. 1850, that's pretty crazy. And I did read somewhere, forget where, I'm probably going to butcher this story a little bit, but this area was designated as a historic area by the National Park Service, I believe. And they sent out some archaeologists and tried to find some old, ruins and history here. So they came to this area, and I believe they excavated a little bit of this. At least that's what it looks like. And they determined that this was an old church, or maybe it was an old school. They found some, old ruins, old artifacts, and you can kind of see the foundation that encircles this. So this would have been here before this was a cemetery. And as you can see, there's even a gravestone in the middle of what they believe was an old church or an old school. So yeah. One last look here at Greenwood Cemetery. I think we're going to try to head over the hill here and see if we could find part of the old gristmill. Apparently you can still see like the tail race or something to this day, so we're going to head down there and check that out next. All right, we'll see you down there. So yeah, that's life and death here at Greenwood Furnace. Imagine coming out here and cutting trees your entire life, acres and acres of trees, making 20 cents a day. And then, ended up here. That's what would have happened to plenty of folks out here. And then to top it off, you worked and died here in a company town, and you might not even have a gravestone to be remembered by. There's more unmarked graves here than marked graves, which is pretty remarkable. So, kind of just making up my own trail here. I noticed that there is a red blaze here, and I know the gristmill is down below the spillway. So, we're gonna kind of just wing it here and follow this trail. So let's see what happens. All right, check this view out. We're standing just above the Standing Stone Creek here, and behind me you can see Greenwood Lake there, or at least the spillway. And if you notice the mountains off there in the distance, if they look a little hazy or smoky, we're currently dealing with those Canadian wildfires that have been making breathing a little bit more difficult here in Pennsylvania. But that's why it's so hazy here. Hopefully it starts to clear up today, but we'll see. So yeah, we're currently searching for the old gristmill. On the map it does say that it is still visible, so we'll give it the old college try and see if we can spot the gristmill. Alrighty folks, well this one was a bit more difficult to find. I ended up following the creek for maybe an eighth of a mile looking for some old ruins and stonework, and I actually gave up, and I was heading back towards the lake, and I looked up on the hill and noticed that there was this little sign pretty much in the middle of nowhere. And I will say, if I don't have a tick on me by the end of the day, it'll pretty much be a miracle, because I've been wading through tall grass pretty much all morning. But anyway, without further ado, here is the gristmill. You can notice some of the old stone foundation there along the side of the road here. And we'll take a look at the sign. If you want to pause it and read it yourself, go for it. I'm just going to read the top. So, the gristmill was company owned and operated. The gristmill supplied flour and cornmeal to the village residents and feed grains for the company's mule and horses. While the miller was allowed to do some private work, the majority of milling was for the benefit of the company. So we talked a little bit about the company so far throughout this video, just to paint a better picture, just to make it into, you know, a better way to understand. The company was basically double dipping. You know, these guys would go out all day cutting down trees, making charcoal for little to no money, you know, 20 cents a day or something along those lines. And then they would come back, maybe they want to go to the local tavern or to the company store. So any money that was spent in town, whether it was for rent or at the company store, would go right back to the company. So they're making double the profit off these folks here. Pretty greedy if you ask me. And to make matters worse, they were buying local grains and oats from towns around to feed the horses. Well, the company got tired of spending that money, and they said, hey, instead of just paying all this extra money for the horses and mules that ran this town, that made this town what it is, they said, screw it, we're just going to build our own grist mill, cut out the middleman, and do it ourselves. And that's what they did. So yeah, we're going to walk down here. I guess the mill race is still visible to this day, and I'll show you whatever I find along the way here. All right, well, I bushwhacked down here a little bit, as you can see, and I believe this is probably the most prominent view of what remains of the old grist mill. You can see some of the stone foundation, and I want to say this is probably the old tail race. So there would have been a water wheel that would have powered water from Greenwood Lake just up ahead and pushed the water down to Standing Stone Creek off in the distance. So yeah, this is probably the best view we're going to get. I'm going to head down there a little bit more and see if there's anything else to see. But yeah, we're going to move on from here. I think there is a Traveler's Inn or something up that way we might try to find. And if not, we're going to go check out Greenwood Lake next. And as you guessed, Greenwood Lake was also built to help run this furnace. So we'll check that out here in just a second. Alrighty folks, well, if you only have a couple minutes to spend here in the park, I highly recommend coming and checking out this spillway. Pretty much the centerpiece, the main attraction here at Greenwood Furnace. And just up above the spillway is the 6-acre Greenwood Lake. And we're officially on the other side of the road now. We started back that way. You can see the cemetery through the wood line. But yeah, to give you some views of the lake. This was also company built back in the 1800s. I guess they were worried maybe if there was a drought, maybe if the creeks ran dry, they wouldn't have water to help, you know, bellow the fire in the furnace. So they created this lake here. I did try a little fishing yesterday. Nothing too great. It's a pretty shallow lake, but I guess they do have a decent trout population. So yeah, just a quick view of the 6-acre lake. We're going to actually be hiking all the way around it today. And you can see some of that wildfire haze, some of that smoke off in the distance there in the mountains here in Huntingdon County. And just behind me you can see this Town Trail, quarter of a mile. We're gonna head up there next. I think there is another set of ruins at the top there, the old Traveler's Rest I think it was called. So that's where we're gonna head, and then come back down and hike around Greenwood Lake. So at this rate, this is probably going to be a two-part video. So keep that in mind. If you're not subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss part 2 next week. All right, so let's go check out some more ruins at the top of this hill here. All right, folks, well, just behind the spillway here, you can see that there is a trail known as the Vientown Trail, and a little bit of information about this. According to the pamphlet, I guess this was an old mule road back in the day. They probably would have transferred everything from the pig iron to oats and grain to bring to the grist mill. And at the top of this trail, and probably about 1/8 of a mile, is another set of ruins known as the Traveler's Inn or the Traveler's Rest. So this was actually a toll road back in the day. If you would have came through here, you would have had to pay, you know, a couple of cents to travel this road. But I'm guessing a lot of folks would travel from like Philadelphia to Pittsburgh, or maybe Philadelphia to Harrisburg or something, and end up coming through this area. So after a long day, you know, on horse and carriage or on the back of a horse, I'm sure a lot of folks would stop up here for a good night's rest, maybe feed their horse, get their horse some water. And yeah, we're gonna head up there and see what remains of the old Travelers Inn here. So let's head up the Vientown Trail, see what we can find. Wow, check these old stairs out. That's pretty awesome. Super steep. I don't know how well it comes out on camera, but you pretty much go straight up this hill here. Alrighty, well, the Vientown Trail turned out to be a bit of a bust. I hiked up probably about a quarter to a half of a mile, and I didn't really run into any sort of ruins except for this. So not 100% sure if this was the Travelers in here or not, but I'm just gonna assume it was. It looks like there could have been maybe a foundation here, maybe an old basement and some old stonework, but there really isn't too much information about the Travelers Inn. So this might be it, or it might not be. Leave me a comment. Maybe I missed it. I don't know. Like I said, it is a bit overgrown here on the trail, so it could honestly be right here for all I know. But this is pretty much the only signs of you know, a foundation that I've seen. So we're gonna head back down to the lake. I'm gonna take you all the way around Greenwood Lake, and we'll eventually end up at the furnace. If you're waiting to see the furnace, we'll get there eventually. So yeah, the Vientown Trail turned out to be a little bit of a bust here. So maybe skip the Travelers Inn if you come up here. Unless I'm in the wrong spot. Leave me a comment if you know. And on that note, we will wrap up the video for this week. I try not to make these videos go over 25 minutes nowadays, so I'll see you back here at Greenwood Furnace next week, and I'll be showing you more ruins and structures from around the park, including the blacksmith shop and of course the furnace itself. As always, thanks for viewing the video. If you want to support the channel, please simply hit that like button, and if you aren't, consider subscribing. Alright then, Maksim Outdoors signing out.